Test. Hello. Hello, everybody. We are about to start. So, if you're wondering, this is the Epinic Community Honeynet BoF. I'm not sure how many people we're expecting at 6 o'clock, but we'll do our best. I see some people in the room, so we'll just get started. I'll introduce the topic a little bit, and then perhaps we can have some discussion. And if there's not much discussion, then we can end it early and get the rest of the day for whatever you need to do. So my name is Adli Wahid. I am the Senior Internet Security Specialist at Epinic, and I run the Epinic Community Honeynet project. So I'd like to welcome all of you to the session. Hang on a sec. Next. Oh, sorry. There you go. So within the time that is available to us, this is kind of the plan. I will kick off the BoF with just a quick introduction of our project, what we do, and the topic surrounding it. And for part two, I hope to get some feedback or sharing from you, maybe some Q&A, some discussion, or possible things that we can do together. I realize that this is a very specialized topic, so I'm not sure how many people are actually keen, or if people are keen, what aspect of the honeypots or honeynet that they are interested in. So we can have an open discussion. This is a very informal session. However, in case we have people online, please use the mic when you speak, and yeah, we'll see how far we can get with this. All right. So that's kind of the plan. Okay. Can I assume that everybody here knows about honeypots or honeynet? Yes, more or less. All right. So just in case there are people who don't know, this has nothing to do with bees or honey tasting or whatever. Although I should mention that I love to take photos of bees. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see a lot of bees. Nothing to do with honeypots or cybersecurity, but just I like to take photos of bees. And I think just for context, we talk about honeypots in the context of cybersecurity, which means this is detection work, or monitoring, or collecting artifacts, malware, command and controls, and things like that. And people also talk about deceptions, and so on and so forth. All right. So the Epinic Community Honeynet project. So I run this project as part of my work in doing security engagement. It started 10 years ago at BDNOG. So we were doing a network security workshop, and based on the participant, we decided that since a lot of people wanted to do security, but never actually see a security incident, they never experience an attack. So let's show some honeypots, because then you can see some live data. You can set it up very quickly, and then gather information, and we do a bit of analysis on that. From that session, we observed that there is a lot of interest in different areas. So like 3 different fields. One is that when people saw the honeypots, they're like, I want to run that as well, right? For my network. I never knew about this particular thing. And I see the value that if I run honeypots in my network, I can have early detection of whatever. So there is that aspect. And then there is a group of people who are like, I understand security better when I saw this honeypot stuff, right? Because we have logs, we have traffic, we have malware, and things like that. So there is opportunities to actually teach a lot of security concepts just around honeypots, right? So there's that element. And there is a third category of folks who's like, okay, honeypots are cool, but I just want the feeds, right? So if you can collect some information and you see data related to my network, send it to me so we can do something about it. So these are folks who are interested in remediation. Not really interested to run stuff, but yeah, if it's available for free, give it to us. So based on that, we decided maybe it can be useful to run this permanently as opposed to just running it for a class or something like that. So slowly we built this infrastructure, multiple sensors with different types of honeypots. After a while, it got a bit serious We ended up last year with about 200 honeypot sensors, including those who are run by community partners. I'll talk a little bit about this. And by the end of 2024, we anticipate that we'll have about 400 plus sensors. And of course, all of this work, especially the serious bit now, would not be possible without the support of APNIC Foundation, right? So that's the infrastructure. And if I may dive a bit deeper into the observations, right? So there are three main areas why we do this. Like I said, those who wants to do honeypots, the honeypotters, right? So how do we set up our own honeypots? Can you just give us some guidelines, and then we'll run it on our own? And there are also folks who are communicating with us and say that we have honeypots. Can we send you the data if you are interested? So we have that as well. And in this particular category, so for the first one, we want to set up our own honeypots. There was a presentation at our online conference, Networking from Home 2020, by Shamim from Bangladesh. He shared how he used the honeypots to do network security monitoring, and he used some of our honeypots as well to get those data, so that his security team can respond to the incidents to do some remediation. So you can, if you have the slides later on, you can see the presentation. Those who are in category 2, can we share our data with you? These are friends of us who attended some training or some talks done by us, and decided to host a sensor and send the data sets to us, right? So GEMNet, IIJ, UPSI, University in Malaysia, RUB in Bhutan, BT Cert, and many, many more. So over time, we have a lot of people who are volunteering to send data to us. Now, I must say that we don't really rely on volunteers these days, simply because we need to send some data on a stable basis to Dash. Because with partners, sometimes they run it and then maybe next year they don't have time anymore. So they're like, we can't host things for you. But still, if people are interested, we're welcome to get this data set, and I will tell you what we do with the data set at a later point. The learning and training I think is a big core for this particular project, because I think this is the capacity development bit, right? Helping security analysts or network engineers to understand security better. So when it comes to learning and training, it's beyond setting up a honeypot, right? It's then how do you analyze the data? How do you understand the different kind of threats? So we have developed a lot of security modules around this topic. Not just security 101, but also how do you analyze malware, traffic, PCAP logs. You learn about intrusion detection systems as a supporting tool, how to perform incident investigation and analysis from the malware or from any data that you collect from the honeypots. How do you reach out to another team to gain more information? How do you enrich data from the logs to do more analysis? How do you perform security monitoring with honeypots and with other tools like Elasticsearch or Splunk? So as you can see, the topic can be expanded into all different perspective of security, just by showing them this is a honeypot, and then we can go deeper and deeper into things. In the last couple of years, we have some interesting experiments. There were a couple of final year projects from some universities, lecturers who approached us asking, do you have any data for my students? So yes, you can have this data. And they write some reports, and they graduate with that final year project. There was a master's thesis as well from one university in Australia from our content. Again, we do a bit of hand-holding in the beginning, but then they do their own analysis, and we just read the documents at a later stage. If you're keen, and if you go to APNIC Academy, you'll find some labs on the honeypots that we have done already. And also last year, there were 2 boot camps, security boot camps for students, or you can say next generation, where we have some artifacts for the capture the flag competitions. So the honeypots that we run generates a lot of interesting contents and also useful tools to make people learn more about security. So that's one aspect. Last but not least, when you have a big honeypot or honeynet, you collect a lot of information. And for now, on a daily basis, we send the data to Dash. So maybe you have heard about Dash from Raphael yesterday. All the hits to our honeypots, we share the information to Dash so that those information can then be relayed to network operators. We send our data to Shadow Server Foundation. You maybe saw the presentation yesterday. And one of the reasons is that because they also outreach to folks outside the Asia Pacific region. And we also know that there are members within Asia Pacific region that get data sets from them. So if they're not using Dash, they're pulling stuff from Shadow Server, they will get our data anyways, right? So it helps to make sure that the data is reaching far and beyond our region and to all members. I'm not sure if folks are using MISP. So MISP is a threat intelligence sharing platform that are being used widely by security communities, by certs, and so on and so forth. So we have daily feeds for MISP instance that people can select and pull, right? So hopefully they can use this information either to maybe track a threat actor or do enrichment of the current data sets and so on and so forth. So it's publicly available, basically, if you use this particular platform. From time to time, whenever we have spare time, we do some analysis on the data sets and use this information to maybe contact a particular member. So I can give you one example. A few months ago, we contacted one ISP in Palau because we see a lot of their IP addresses hitting our honeypots. Turns out the home routers for the customers have been infected by some malware, and they were not monitoring it, of course. And then we reached out to them to say, did you notice this? And we had some conversation about it. And then they're like, okay, we understand what the problem is, and we'll try to remediate by replacing this router. So we try to do that as well if we have time. Okay, so dashboard, it didn't happen. So we have dashboard as well, but this is not things that we share widely. But as you can see, there's a lot of data that we collect from the honeypots, and we can see a lot of interesting stuff there. Again, that's not the point, because if we can use this information in either helping people to deal with security incidents or teaching them about security, that would be a win for us, and also notifying parties who are affected by by some incidents, malware or attacks and whatnot. All right. So basically, just quickly, these are just data from Thailand in the last 3 months. As you can see, 18,000 IP addresses hitting our honeypots, and maybe nothing really serious there in terms of what they were infected with, but still, it's something that you have to fix, right, at the end of the day. All right. So I can give some perspective of honeypots activities in this region. So people who are running honeypots. So there's a group called the Global Honeynet Project. It's been around for a while. It's probably not as active as before, right? So there are still people part of that group, and one of the focus of that particular group is looking at software, like software that we use as honeypots. So sometimes they get students to do internship with some funding from Google GSOC program to develop some honeypot software that is out there because they don't get developed or maintained as much, or they have old functionalities and things like that. So there's that particular group. It's just a loose group of a bunch of folks who are interested in honeypots. You can check it out. In this particular region, there are 2 countries with active honeypot communities, right? So these are people that we normally talk to. They are in Indonesia and Taiwan. So they have annual events, annual activities, programs at universities and things like that. So we always talk to them. Many of the national certs, particularly in this region, they run their own honeynets. And normally this is for just, internal monitoring or incident reporting. But many of these honeynets are private, so they don't really share their data directly with us, or they can't because it may be, those honeypots might be running in some sensitive networks, right? And we're not interested in those data set as well. And also, ISIF, Asia grants from the Epinic Foundation has also been generous. If you check projects that received grants in the past, in the last few years, there were a few projects that are honeynet related, which is kind of interesting. And this help people to build the infrastructure. And sometimes we go in and try to sort of mentor, share some tips as well, and some of our experience. 2016, this was a project in Pakistan, I believe. 2019, that's the Swiss-German University in Indonesia. Anyhow, so what I'd like to share here is that there are groups or pockets of people who are interested in this subject, and hopefully, through the BoF, we can maybe think about how we can get together and maybe share more information with those who are interested in this particular work. All right, this is my last slide before we go to part 2, where we can have some discussion. So from our point of view, definitely there is more work that we are interested in doing. So, infrastructure, update, expansion, doing some back-end, scripting and all of that, more sensors, different types of honeypots, and maybe do a bit more analysis that can be useful for the wider community. But also trying to build a community that in this region that might be interested in topics related to honeypots or Honeynet. So one thing that we've been concerned about is the software. That, like I said, there's a lot of software that we use in this project that are developed, many years ago. They still work, but maybe they don't have any new features and things like that. So perhaps we can get some community interested in, enhancing those software or develop new ones. And not only just the honeypots, but also tools that we use for analysis, like sandboxes, IDSs, and I don't know, anything that is useful for running or maintaining a large project. So perhaps, we could have hackathons or encourage to have that in different parts of the region, so that we can have more tools that we can use and updated software for those who are keen to do this kind of work. All right, so that's my bit, part 1. And I didn't expect to have so many people in the room, but since we have a lot of people, maybe we can share. So those who are running honeypots, maybe you can share your experience, what you're doing. I know Giacomo has a large Honeynet at Team Camry. Maybe he can share as well a bit. We can have some discussion. If you are keen in this topic, maybe how do we, I don't know, make it more regular as a discussion, or maybe it doesn't make sense to have it at big events like this. Or if you have questions. And lastly, if you have any collaboration ideas, right? Or anything that comes to mind, feel free to share with the rest of us. All right, who would like to go first? All right. One sec, do we have anyone online? Do we have anyone? No? Maybe? Okay. Yeah, those online, if they want to share, feel free to jump in as well. It's working. One second.
Yeah,
yeah.
So nice to meet you, Adley. No, my name is Jaco.
We know each other for more than 20 years, I think,
Yeah,
almost.
kind of. So I just wanted to express that, we are grateful that you are doing this work. I think keeping Honeynets running is super important, especially for providing data for the ISPs and also for the national certs, for them to remediation and also to identify what is happening, right? I think it's super valid, super important, and you are a hero, for doing this, right? And so Team Carmi runs several different types of Honeynets, right? And honeypots. We do one type that we call a dark net. A dark net is a honeypot that receives packets, but don't reply anything back, right? And we are always looking for people that can host those, right? Because one of the usages we do for this is to see packets arriving that are reset, packets, because somebody spoofed something, and who received the packet is sending a reset back, right? Different types. I think one thing that I would like to see is a more diverse type of honeypots, right? And technologies. the CERT BR, the Brazilian CERT, that a lot of people here may know Nick BR, CERT BR, Klaus and Christine. They have also different technologies They have a one that I think is one of the best available called the Spam Pots project. It's more specialized, honeypot for collecting spam data, spam, and so they are also always looking for people to host those. They have a little bit more stricter requirements for you to join, but I think it's nice to see what the other teams that continue to play on this field are doing, right? And you made a very good point, Adley. We still rely on the goodwill of people keeping those things, being developed, new features and things. This is like a curse we have in our industry, especially security. We rely on people. If somebody gets married or somebody changes job or somebody dies, we lose a tool. We have a super fragile, environment that we rely. So I think it could be nice if we can come up with a strategy to have, a funding, or some kind of a support to continue those tools to exist and having new things, right? I cannot put a honeypot on my network if it's vulnerable, right? Or because it's old, right? So I can put a honeypot that I know is going to do the honeypot job, not becoming a honeypot, right? It's so I think we need to maybe find ways to bring the honeypots and honeynet, to a highlight. They are super critical. Only people who use that data know how important it is, right? And and we are also open, to support APNIC, to support you. We can help you. I saw that you have a very ambitious target, of having 400 new sensors until the next year, right? We would like to help, and I think others here in the room, people that have infrastructure, I think they can also embrace this because it's helps a lot the community, it helps everyone, right? So some initial thoughts about the topic.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Giacomo.
And I want us another selfie with you later.
All right. Who's next? Swapnil. Oh, please say your name.
Yeah.
This is Swapnil Shrestha, India. So echoing Giacomo's thoughts, thank you for running this project for the community. That is one. So I'm going to switch hats in between. So I'm going to wear the community trainer hat and try to, put an idea here. There is this data problem from a threat intelligence perspective, right? And I'm sure Giacomo will also agree with me. That problem is not going to go away, right? Now, one of the problems from a network operator perspective, as well as a CERT or a CCERT, is finding the signal from the noise, right? Now, is there something that you have thought about which can be a training content which can use this platform, this data, and to operationally, not only ingest it using MISP, using any other way, but making it more actionable, right? So to be specific, what I mean is, if I send to a network operator a list of IOCs which are just doing a internet scan, which my honeypot has caught, I think that is less actionable than something which is, say, for example, an vulnerability which is currently being exploited, right? So would love to get your thoughts on this topic, because that is something I believe is also the need of the hour. Aside from having all this data, how do we operationally use it, right? So that is one. Second, you also mentioned about sharing this data via MISP, right? Is this part of the default circle MISP feed, which is available when you put install MISP for the first time, because there is a default feed
Yeah,
that goes, right?
This is one of the defaults that people can select. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great. So would love to get your thoughts on the first one.
Yeah. So I think training around this data is something very interesting. Based on what you're saying, like if we want to teach a group of people on how to process data and react to it, you can't do it one-off, right? So the topic when it comes to security, it's something that probably need to be taught over time. So because I'm doing mostly security engagement, not training itself, then I have normally a lot of opportunities to do this. So when we engage with the national cert in the Pacific, we can commit to being with them for a couple of years. So we can go slow and easy on some of this topic, and we can start from the very beginning. But if you are doing a one-off training where you want to teach folks how to deal with threat data, then 5 days is not enough, right? And sometimes you don't have control on who comes to the classroom. They may have some background knowledge or may not. So one simple example that I normally face is that if you go to a workshop and you have 30 participants and you're teaching honeypots, like even a simple topic like honeypots, right? Many of the tools that we use run on Linux. You go in and half of the class does not or have never used Linux before. So you have to okay, let's do Linux 101 kind of thing. But you don't have that time in 5 days. So if you want to teach something like that, like you say, it's an important topic where, people start with some security ideas, and then, we go into threats, we go into artifacts, and then we're like, okay, now how do we do incident response? Based on this data, how do you prioritize? How do we enrich and things like that? That will be more than 5 days, and it's probably going to be multiple classes. So one possible solution is if we have this content on something like the academy, we can say, okay, this is the path for getting there, and you have to study these modules or this topic, and over time, we expect you to be able to understand this topic and to be able to use it. So yeah, so I think there's no shortcut to this, where you have to engage with the same group of people over time. And that's why I also like the idea of mentoring, where you go and run a workshop, but then make yourself available after the workshop for follow-up discussions or answering questions. And if people are ready, you can go to the next level. Yeah. Does that make sense? Or I'm just ranting?
No, it does. But I think my question was specific to people from the security community or the certs or the C-certs, right? So if these participants are in the room, not any participant per se, then your job is a lot easier.
Yes,
Right.
yes. They will have the basic understanding
Exactly.
of what we're talking
Right.
about.
So
Yeah.
then we don't need to teach them Linux 101.
No, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the audience that I'm talking about from a CT perspective.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's right. Interesting. Thank you, Swapnil.
Hi, Adli. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
bringing up this topic. So I think in my perspective, I believe it's much better if we can build a community. I mean, training is important, but something, as you said, follow up after. So community is really very important out of your community. I mean, once you do a training somewhere, so that has to be with a community follow up with different region, so that can help the newcomers to the internet security or the security lines to enhance more and their knowledge, and of course to be more able to apply this kind of security knowledge. So I think community is very important for everyone. Like I myself attend today, so if I be part of it, so I will go back and I will try to build my own smaller community and so on. So there, the knowledge will be passed to everybody, and then the internet security will be something more viable, like for everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that. Anyone else? Oh, there's.
Yeah, Silvia Cadena, Epinic Foundation, just wanted to thank you for the plug on the promotion, for the support that the foundation provides, but also to highlight how important it is, all the community sharing that you do, and to build trust among community members that are interested in this space, to gain confidence so that they can act upon what they are discovering and learning, and also trying to make connections between other initiatives and other projects, like what you mentioned on Shadow Server and the universities that are working on other Honeynet projects or initiatives. I believe that it was mentioned yesterday on the Shadow Server session how important it is to first start with the data sets and access to information that is free to access, instead of jumping into buying costly security information or services or products, to gain confidence and then work better in this space. And I think it's very important to highlight how costly it is to actually make those things free. So for all of you that are involved in this side of the industry, is probably to make take pause on the comments that you made about how difficult it is to maintain the software that you're using. When you said it still works, it makes me very nervous. So, to try and figure out, okay, what it is that we need to be doing so that this open source software that is powering all of this analysis and this community keeps growing and keeps being developed. And what can we do to participate and support in that space? Please let us know.
All right.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Sylvia. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Robert from the NCC. I've been somewhat involved in measurements for, I don't know, a bit more than a decade, maybe two. And one of the things that we do is run the RIPE Atlas anchors, which is comparable in terms of needs for participation and help from the community to deploy them and keep them operated. I had a number of chats with people from GCA, Global Cyber Alliance. They also run a Honeynet.
Yeah.
And we try to share experiences in what works and what doesn't when you want to work with your community and your partners to actually install and keep these devices there. So, the more stability there is, the better, but different discussion whether, you can assume that they're always going to be stable. Let's put that aside for a moment. But what it boiled down to was that you need to find the right incentives and the value proposition for your partners in order to engage with them. They will need to understand, and you will need to understand. So all sides need to understand, what are they getting into? What are the downsides? What are the risks that they are taking if they jump on and start helping you, versus what are the benefits that they get? And I would like to claim that for many institutions, the cost-benefit ratio is very positive, but it needs to be very clear right up front. Because if it turns out that yes, it seemed like a good idea, but the boss says it costs us, but where are the profits? Then it's going to lead to disappointment. So I would encourage you to think about, what would you put on an A4 flyer if you wanted to say, here's the flyer, read it, and you will want to join us.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, so just on that, I think we learned that very quickly after maybe doing this for a year or two, where initially the idea was, let's get volunteers to run the sensors for us, and then and we grow, right? And they will, and one partner will tell how awesome this thing is to another person or another entity, and they will join us and things like that. But I think quickly we saw that people get excited to participate, and then after a while, things change, change of jobs, change of priorities, and then the sensor doesn't exist anymore. So we thought, if we wanted a stable stream of data or data set, we have to do this ourselves. We welcome partnership, but that will not be the core of the project. In terms of hosting sensor, but we also welcome partnership because we have a lot of data on analysis. So we've been looking at organization who may have some extra brain power. Okay, you don't need to run any sensors, but if you have good analysts in your team, check out this data that we have. Maybe there are something interesting there, and more than welcome to write reports and so on. And before Joy, just on Sylvia, yeah, Sylvia, I think funding is maybe something that people normally just assume is there because it's free and therefore someone else is paying for it. But I can see many examples where even for some of the certs that we deal with, particularly in least developed economy, they rely 100% on all this open source and free software to kick off or to get started or to maintain their operation. And yes, there is this fear that, especially like I always tell them, think about if somebody pull this project off GitHub, how are you going to maintain your monitoring if you do not have any capacity in doing any software development or have not participated in contributing code to the project, right? And so on and so forth. But I think that's probably another area that we can think about. So rather than just pushing for more sensors, more data collection, but start thinking about, okay, let's get a group of people, maybe in our region, to do active development on some of this project, and we'll find some money for it from the foundation, right? Maybe. Or with the foundation. Thanks. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Joy Chen. I work for TWNIC. Before I start the question, I also want to just to say that, Adley, thank you very much for running this session. I want to kind of like follow up with the two gentlemen who has mentioned about the community and how we can work together to collaborate on this. I ran TW Search for a good number of years, and we know that how Honeypot can play an important role to do all this. But I also realize, at least in my economy, that different people are running different sets of Honeypot, and they try to capture different things. There isn't so much of the collaboration that's going on, which I felt very sorry about it, because I'm sure that with the amount of effort that each organization has, if we can really put this together, and some organization may be very good having the resources to deploy the sensors and everything. But then when it comes to collecting the data and analyzing, that could be a totally different skill and different talents. So I'm all for the community. And I think that the AP Cert has already done something that's wonderful here. And I just wanted to say that I'm very welcome to continue working with the people who has probably already having the honeypot that we can work with the data. And we are thinking about deploy some honeypots, but it will always be nice to know that what's already out there, so we don't do the redundant, and be able to capture some of the unique things, and having the data to share among the community. And I don't know how realistic it is, because everybody may be trying to capture certain type of the certain type of things. And so I'd like to hear your comments on this type of collaboration. How would it best work out between the different organizations? They could be coming from different industry or different research organization. And how can we make the best out of it when we can really combine all the efforts? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think collaboration, it's easier said than done in a lot of cases. Everybody will agree that collaboration is a good thing, but that's probably as vague as you can get. So if you say, let's collaborate, everybody will agree, okay, we'll do that. But how do we do it? When do we do it? What are you going to contribute? I think that requires an extra effort to pull people together and maybe sit down and talk. So maybe I'm thinking, if there's a lot of interest in this space, maybe we can make some of our meetings like a regular, a platform for people to get together regularly. Those who maybe just operate honeypots, just similarly, people who run networks and things like that, to just get together and start from there, and maybe come up with some practical ways on how we can collaborate better. Yes.
Ashwin from Fato, Bangladesh. What just Joy was just saying that there are many efforts going on, but disjointed.
Yeah.
We're not collaborating. There's one area, and then you can see that this voluntary honeypot deployment, or our friend in Ripe Atlas, they're deploying. So what's happening? The individuals, those who are interested, they're taking the honeypot, putting it to the network, and you mentioned already that they transport to somewhere, and or maybe he doing some more busy and it's turned off. Nobody cares about it. This kind of thing happening, but Another aspect of security, you see that the commercial players, they are actually going to the fintech organizations, big organizations, and they're spending a lot of money on security. And other area where there is no people for security, and they don't care even. Yeah, like you mentioned that they don't know that they have a lot of malware infected. You pointed out. So probably if we see like that it's not only just a honeypot and giving some information. If we can add few more things along with that, that covers a complete security perspective for organizations from very small to very serious organizations, and in different area, different people will start working, maybe collaboration, maybe partnering with some university, foundation is there to help. So altogether, whole security spectrum, we can think together, probably even now funding is required, but if really grows, probably it can be self-sustaining. People may be interested to pay money for that actually to get this data or information or kind of security protection thing. I don't know, thinking a little bit bigger, but probably not impossible. You can actually, if we plan properly and try to do something like that, not only honeypot, few more along with that, maybe IDS, IPS, maybe a firewall, even open source firewall. There are things there, but need to correlate and make it easy for people to deploy. I don't know, just my thought. Thank you.
Yeah. No. Those are good points, definitely. Yeah. And I think we have seen this in our engagement through trainings and, just talking to people about honeypots, because it starts with honeypots, then you go into these other concepts. How do I do intrusion detection? And then what about firewall? And what about security monitoring? And how do I ingest data? How do I enrich this data? So it can become big, a big topic in the end, where you look at multiple facets of of security, and honeypot is just something that starts the conversation, basically. You just reminded me something about collaboration. So I think when it comes to collaboration, because you said there are many people running honeypots. Yes, that's true. But sometimes the goals are different. So for example, some people are just running honeypots to monitor their own critical infrastructure network. So they might be interested to collaborate in terms of sharing what they have done generally, but they will not share data with you because they can't. There's a lot of sensitivity in this data set. So they say, yes, we can collaborate, maybe just sharing best practices and how you have done your work. But can we share data? Sorry, we can't. There's a limitation there. There is also collaboration where nobody is actually doing anything. We want to collaborate in maintaining the software, but nobody is chipping in. Nobody has time for that. People have time to develop, to run the Honeynet, to deploy, to collect data, to do analysis, but we have no capacity to do development. So I think in that situation, you can't wait for a collaboration to happen. Like you have to sort of force it, or create a situation where we'll just start something. And if you want to collaborate at some point, you're more than welcome. I think we have to think like that instead of just waiting for people to just get together and do something, in a form of collaboration. All right, cool. Anyone else? Anyone else? Tukso? So Tukso, Gemnet is one of the first organization that volunteered to set up a sensor, I think since maybe 2016?
2018.
2018?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, initially we installed honeypot. Before installing honeypot, we had a keeper installed in our network, but I saw the advantage of installing honeypot within is a part of the Honeynet. We were able to see more data, from the. I had a country view, so. Initial purpose was to monitor for our network, for our IP space, also to learn from the data from honeypot. And then, we have, since we have data for the country, we started sharing, there was attempts to share the data with network operators in Mongolia and reach out them to, with the information from the honeypot, but taking action on those information was very limited, And I think we had we tried having calls with them during COVID time, yeah. And then since then we didn't have any activities, but I think the situation is still the same. And do you have any other do you have any experience from other honeypots or countries? How do they share the information, and how they track on the action they taken on exported data?
All right. Okay. Tukso mentioned something that reminded me one of the offerings for the initial partners. Like, okay, if you deploy a honeypot, what will you get? So one of the things that we offer, if you deploy a honeypot, you'll get to see the rest of the data set, or you get to see country data for further work and so on and so forth. So some people like that idea because they can maybe talk to other partners or other players about some of the attacks that are happening in the country. But Tukso raises a very interesting point. Now, with the data, will people take any action? So I think that's a problem that we haven't really solved 100% because it depends. It depends on a lot of things. In some economies, the national cert is driving a lot of this initiative. So they volunteer to get this data, and then they will knock on the doors of the ISPs or operators or customers to say that there's something on your network, and this is something very malicious or very dangerous. Please fix it. And we'll keep on bothering you until you fix it, right? But there are economies where something like this is not in place. So there is no consequences for not doing anything, right? And information will just be information. It's nice to know. But well, no one has died. Our network is still fine, right? We can still use the internet. So there is no, I think there is no set of expectations that you can apply generally to everybody. But in a lot of places, it starts with awareness and maybe buy-in from the players. Sometimes you have to force it through regulation or some policies. Sometimes it's just what people like to do. Like I think one of the things that I've observed, if I report anything to maybe ISPs or network operators in Japan, it'll get fixed, like almost immediately. Like, thank you for letting us know. We'll look into it right away. But this may not be the same in other places. And I feel that it could be because of lack of understanding of security, literacy, or awareness. Maybe they are aware, but maybe not. They don't really understand what is the real impact of dealing with it now, rather than just or leaving it on forever. So maybe the solution is more discussion, more awareness, and maybe getting something like a national cert to be involved as well. Yeah.
Sylvia, again, just one comment that also popped to mind now is on the incentives for employers to have their staff involved in these kinds of initiatives. I keep talking to people and bouncing to people in the meeting that the industry has changed so much. It's so difficult for people that want to be involved in cybersecurity research, policy development, ISP, IP deployment, a bunch of other standards development, to that if that is not part of their daily jobs, how costly it is and how ridiculous it is to be able to participate. And sometimes we take these volunteers for granted.
Yep.
And I don't think, you and I have this conversation many times, that I really don't think we can live out of volunteer work for too long at the scale that the internet is growing and developing. So I think that in those conversations around coordination that Joey was mentioning also, and that we kind of started also having conversations around in the cooperation SIG earlier this week, is to have serious conversations about what are the incentives and what is the support that the community can give to people that are willing to, as I've heard yesterday, someone telling me that they are sacrificing their annual leave to be here, 9 full days of work that, they are not spending with families or friends, relaxing on a beach somewhere and recovering, but coming here to do some work because their employers don't support them to participate. And it's not only the time, it's also the cost of the registration, travel fees, all of that. And for whatever reason, they are not eligible to be fellows because we are trying to focus the fellowships on next generation, right? Which is fine, but I mean, it is what it is. But I guess it's that at least having a reflection on what are the incentives and how can your companies and even smaller ones can support these processes so that we can keep going, because it is honestly not sustainable. If all we are talking about is time and brain capacity and energy, and that cannot really, anyway,
Yeah.
just leave it there.
Good point. Yeah, good point. Right. Anyone else would like to share anything? Oh, yep.
Yeah, I think a good idea it maybe is to know participants of the Honeynet project to receive annual CPE credits that they can put to their certifications. No, they're committing time. No, they are committing energy, and sometimes they're going to do those things in their extra time. No, so this could be something extra. But I think going after funding that also allows, for instance, like be able to bring people
Yeah.
to a conference like this. I think like a scholarship program could be interest because a lot of people benefit from the data. So I think it's time to also people give back. For
Good points. Yeah. Something to think about, definitely. Anyone else? We're good now? Any final recommendations? Suggestions? No? Honeypot forum? Okay. All right, we can probably do that. Maybe a discussion group. Yeah, I'll take some of these ideas and then maybe process them and talk to more people about it. And then maybe we can come up with something. But really, I think we are looking seriously at multiple aspects of the Honeynet. I mean, the Honeynet deployment and operation, that's business as usual. But also there are some issues, I guess, moving forward with some of the software that we use, the tools, and so on and so forth. And also, we are really interested to build more training content around maybe the honeypots security, as mentioned by Sumon just now. We'll keep on doing that. I guess that's all from me for now. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for all the ideas and suggestions and recommendations. And I'll be around till tomorrow. And you can also reach me through my email. Yeah, thank you very much for attending the session. I'll see you around. Thank you.